There are three big modes of things to do when you're playing Pathfinder. You have the encounter mode, you have downtime mode, when you're back in town and you're doing stuff. And then there is exploration mode. And exploration mode kind of seems to be that one mode that no one really does a lot with, although they really should. There's a lot in there. And I find that even when I'm playing, I don't necessarily think about it. But let's go ahead and kind of go into those things so that next time that you are in a situation where you can use some of these activities, they're available for you. My name is Don, trying to be the Sly Strategist, and let's go ahead and get into it. Now, one of the first things I want to bring up in exploration mode is your travel speed. When you're in exploration mode, a lot of times people will, especially in a dungeon, they'll treat exploration mode almost as encounter mode and move along that way. So a good way to kind of think of this is think about your player speed and look at the table. I'll go ahead and put that up on the screen. But if you look at the table, it will tell you how many feet per minute you can move, how many miles per hour you can move, and how many miles per day you can move, depending on what your stride or land speed is. And once again, these are very typical rates. If you have something that kind of gets you in between those, which I can't off the top of my head think of a way to do that, but if you did, you could kind of extrapolate from there. Now, moving through difficult terrain is going to have the listed movement rate. So if you are traveling through a very hard mountain pass, then and you have a land speed of 25 feet, then as opposed to 20 miles per day, you might only do 10 miles per day. Greater difficult terrain is going to reduce the distance traveled to 1/3 the listed amount. And if moving through that terrain does require a skill check of some sort, basically the GM should probably call out for one of those maybe once per hour and use the results in the table to determine the progress. It will all depend on GM discretion and how they feel the particular movement is going along. Let's go ahead and get into what activities you can specifically do while you're in encounter mode. Now, when you're in encounter mode, you can do a bunch of exploration activities. There are ones that are provided by, just the rule book. There are also a bunch of activities you can do that are related to your skills. We're not going to cover everything. We're pretty much just going to cover the basic activities. Skill activities, I'll show a list and kind of show you where that is in the description in the core rulebook on some of the things you can do. But let's go ahead and talk about those. But first, I did want to say that the book states, and it has a very specific sentence that I'm going to read directly from the book. The GM finds the best exploration activity to match your description and describes the effects of that activity. Some exploration activities limit how fast you can travel and be effective. So what that basically means is that you, through your movement and through how you interact with your table, you might tell the GM, well, I'd like to be searching for this particular thing, or I would like to make sure that I'm casting Detect Magic the entire time. Or maybe you have a particular defensive spell or something that you would like to do, or maybe you'd like to have your shield up the whole entire time that you are traveling. The GM can interpret these things as an exploration activity. Holding up a shield is going to be defend. Detect Magic is going to be continually casting Detect Magic, which is something that is on this particular activity list. Searching is also on this particular activity list. So the GM can interpret them, or you know what? You can tell the GM what you are trying to do. I have a few ways that we can do that, and we'll do that at the end. Things that you can use at a real table, as well as things you can use in a virtual tabletop in order to kind of denote to the GM what you are trying to do during your exploration activities. But with that, let's go ahead and go on into the list. Now, the first one I'd like to talk about is avoid notice. And what you are trying to do is you attempt a stealth check to avoid notice while traveling at half speed. When you are doing this activity, once again, you are moving at half speed. If you have a feat specific to this, they mentioned the Swift Sneak Feat. You can move at full speed rather than half, but you can only do one exploration activity at a time. And this would be the activity that you are dedicating yourself to. The only exemption to that, and you'll find this for a lot of these particular exploration activities, if you happen to be legendary at that particular skill. If you're avoiding notice at the start of an encounter, you can roll stealth for initiative instead of perception, as well as to see if the enemies notice you. Another one I'd like to talk about is defend. Defend is also, and you're going to see, once again, this throughout a lot of these, is you're moving at half your travel speed. So when you are using exploration activity, you are going to be moving at half. Basically, the entire time you do it, you are going to gain the benefits of raising a shield if combat breaks out while you are in exploration mode and as you transition into encounter mode. Another good one is detect magic. It does require the concentrate trait, but you are casting detect magic at regular intervals. You're moving at half speed again, which is kind of what, we said that was going to happen. You basically have no chance of accidentally overlooking a magical aura at a travel speed of up to 300 feet per minute, but you cannot be traveling no more than 100 feet per minute to detect magical auras before the party moves into them. So 300 feet per minute, and you'll detect the aura, but you'll be like, oh, that was back there. 100 feet per minute, and you will not walk past it. Now, not going alphabetical order out of the book, but I'm going to bring this one up here simply because it is very similar, and that would be repeat a spell. Detect magic is a spell. It's a cantrip, and repeat a spell kind of is almost the greater spell to detect magic. So you are repeatedly casting the same spell while moving at half speed. In general, and very typically, this needs to be a cantrip that you want to have an effect in case combat breaks out. And it must be one you can cast in 2 actions or lower. So it cannot be a 3-action or multi-turn cantrip. In order to prevent fatigue while doing this, you're really only going to be using this at certain intervals when you feel that something out of the ordinary could occur. You can use this to sustain a spell that is already going or an activation with a sustained duration. However, they can be sustained for about 10 minutes, although some specify that it can be sustained for a different duration. It is up to your GM to determine how long you can go. I've always particularly interpreted this as you can do this for a 10-minute period while in exploration mode, then you need to rest, maybe rest for 10 minutes, and then you can do it again. So it isn't something that you're going to be running continuously, which would be the big difference between this and detect magic. Detect magic has no such limit. Another good one is follow the expert. It has the auditory, concentrate, and exploration and visual trait. What you're basically doing is you're choosing an ally who is going to be attempting a recurring skill check while exploring. Could be climbing, could be performing some other exploration tactic that requires a skill check, avoiding notice. The ally must be at least an expert in that skill and must be willing to provide assistance to the group. When you are following the expert, you match their tactic or attempt similar skill checks. Thanks to your ally's assistance, you can add your level as a proficiency bonus to the associated skill check, even if you are untrained. Additionally, you gain a circumstance bonus to your skill check based on your ally's proficiency. So you get a +2 if they're an expert, a +3 if they're a master, or a +4 if they are legendary. This would be if you want to do something along the lines of an avoid notice, but have everybody in line do the avoid notice. While not everybody is that great at stealth, then you can do follow the expert in order to get those circumstance bonuses added to everybody else in the group to see if you can't get through it unscathed. There is also the hustle. Hustle is exploration and move, and what you are doing is you are straining yourself to move at double your travel speed. So this is one of the few that actually makes you go a little bit faster. You can hustle only for a number of minutes equal to your constitution modifier times 10, and this is going to be a minimum of 10 minutes that you would do the hustle. But the one limit to this is you have to use the lowest constitution modifier among everybody in your group in order to determine how long you can hustle for. Otherwise, you'll be leaving that person behind. Another one I'm going to cover is investigate. Investigate has the concentrate and exploration. And in your head, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between investigate and search? Searching is almost like a mini seek. This investigate is almost a continuous recall knowledge. What you are doing is you're seeking out information about your surroundings while traveling at half speed. You can use your recall knowledge as a secret check to discover clues among what you can see, what you're engaging with, those kind of things. So if you have a specific lore, let's say you have Otari lore and you are going through Otari, you can use that particular skill in order to assist you with a recall knowledge to find out things of note, or perhaps things that go totally against what is there. If you are going through a forest, you could use nature. If you are going through a magic shop or through a very magical area, you could use occult or arcana or various other skills as your recall knowledge. You can use any skill that has a recall knowledge action while investigating. However, the GM is going to be the one that determines whether the skill is particularly relevant to the clues that you find. So if there is a clue that maybe was written in an adventure path or that he or she put into their adventure and you come across it, but maybe you were searching or investigating, let me clarify, you are investigating with perhaps the wrong skill, you might not find it, but it is up to them to determine whether that is the right thing to do. Another good one is Scout. Scout is a concentrate and exploration trait, just like the rest of them with the exploration trait. But what you are doing is you are scouting ahead and or behind the group to watch for danger, moving at half speed. So when you get to the next encounter that you're expecting to happen, every creature in your party gains a +1 circumstance bonus to their initiative rolls. So by doing this scout ahead, you are basically allowing everyone to get that +1. Search is concentrate trait, and you are seeking meticulously for hidden doors, concealed hazards, traps, all things like that. You can usually make an educated guess as to which locations are best to check and move at half speed. But if you want to be thorough and guarantee you check everything, you need to travel at a speed of no more than 300 feet per minute or 150 feet per minute to ensure that you check everything before you walk into it. So in other words, you're looking ahead. And that is very, very similar to the detect magic condition. You can always say, well, I'd like to move slower. Maybe the party will agree to it. I would definitely make sure the party agrees to it. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. But you can always move more slowly when searching to cover more thoroughly. And the expeditious search feat increases these maximum speeds. If you do come across a secret door, item, or hazard while searching, the GM will attempt a free secret check to seek to see if you notice the hidden object or hazard. And if there are a lot of objects to search, you will have to stop and spend significantly longer to search thoroughly, perhaps perform a full seek action. It would be up to your GM's discretion. Now, I am going to bring up a list here, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are the exploration activities related to specific skills. There are such things here, such as, I'll probably just read them off, but borrow an arcane spell, coerce, cover tracks, decipher writing, gather information, identify alchemy, identify magic, impersonate, learn a spell, make an impression, repair, sense direction, track, and treat wounds. These are all things that you could be doing while in exploration mode. Some of them, obviously, treat wounds, you can't be moving and doing that. There are some repair would be the same thing. So not all of these are going to allow you to continue to move, but that would be part of the skill description as well as what your GM, or basically how the GM wants to play it at the table. With that, let's go a little bit into rest and daily preparations. So with rest and daily preparations, every 24 hours, you need a period of rest, and it's typically going to be 8 hours. Could there be some things that modify it? Sure. There are potions, there are feats, there are things that you can do in order to make that slightly different. But generally speaking, 8 hours per 24-hour period. During this time, you're going to regain hit points equal to your constitution modifier times your level, and you might recover or improve from certain conditions. Now, if you do not rest 8 hours per 24-hour period, you will become fatigued. In addition, if you try to sleep in armor that does not have the right traits, you will also be fatigued. If you go more than 16 hours without resting, this fatigue will come along, and you cannot recover from this fatigue condition until you rest at least 6 continuous hours while avoiding whatever conditions put you in there, such as wearing armor. After you rest, you can make your daily preparations, which takes about an hour. You can prepare only if you've rested and only once per day. So you can't rest, do daily preparations, kind of get an hour or two into your day, and then decide, oh, I forgot to do this. I want to rest again for 8 hours so we can go ahead. You can't do that. It's once per 24 hours. These would be things like spellcasters regain spell slots. Prepared spellcasters will choose the spells to have available that day. Focus points, other abilities that refresh during your preparations, and abilities that can be used only a certain number of times per day. These would all be refreshed, including magic item uses. You can don your armor and equip weapons and other gear, and you can invest up to 10 worn magic items to gain their benefits for one day. So if you had more than 10, first of all, lucky you. And you can also kind of switch out your invested magic items at this time. With that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about tracking these activities while you're in exploration mode, both for you and for the GM. Now, I'm going to cover two specific scenarios here, and this would be at an actual table, and this would also be on a virtual tabletop. So at an actual table, what I have seen done in live plays on YouTube and heard described is kind of exploration activity cards. In other words, they could be trifold, something that you can put up and has it kind of sitting, standing up, facing the GM, or it could just be a card you put kind of in a little holder that shows the GM that you would like to be doing this during this time frame. So that way the GM knows what's going on, everybody in your party knows what's going on, and people can decide what to do as a group. But using these cards will allow everybody to keep track of what's going on, who's doing what, and you won't run into the situation where the GM will say, oh, and you are now attacked by 3 kobolds. You won't be able to say, oh, but I was defending the whole time. Is it okay if I go ahead and do that? Or I was scouting, so everybody gets a +1. I'm sure no one's trying to cheat, but it'll be pretty well defined what everybody was doing, what the rules are, and it also kind of helps ensure that people are doing these activities. And I want to also talk a little bit about virtual tabletops. The one I specifically can talk about is Foundry. Now, I can't speak to all virtual tabletops. However, I will say for Foundry, I have found a couple of good modules in order to help track this. They are PF2E Exploration Effects and PF2E Exploration Activities. And what you can do with this is you can go ahead and, go to your compendium browser, bring up the exploration activities. You can drag this wherever you want. I dragged it into my macro bar. And while you are getting ready to go into exploration activities, you can ask your players, prompt them to go ahead and see if they want to do something, or if they happen to say something along the lines of, well, I'd like to defend, or I'd like to be detecting magic the whole entire time. Go ahead and click on that. It will bring up a bunch of different exploration effects. Once again, if someone brings up something that is a skill exploration activity, you can go ahead and even just do it as an unspecified activity. However, let's say if your fighter wanted to defend, you can drag it on them, and now they have defend. If you have your rogue wanted to search the entire time, well, now your rogue can be searching. And if you wanted your magic user to cast Detect Magic the entire time, go ahead and have them detect magic. And maybe your cleric also wanted to search during the same time frame, since everybody else is doing something and they don't want to be left out. Then you can go ahead and have them search. If you need to clear a particular effect, just like anything else, you just right-click on it and it goes away. As easy as that. It is a really, really good tool to help you track these things and make sure that these things are being used. Because remember, there are benefits to using these exploration mode activities when necessary and when you think it's a good time to use them. Now, I do hope you like this video, and I hope it kind of made you think about exploration activities a little bit. I know some people don't use them at all. Some people use them all the time. And unfortunately, I use them when I remember to use them. There have been times that I have thought, well, why weren't we doing scouting the entire time? Why wasn't the fighter defending when we went in? It's not like we're in a rush for time. There are times you are going to be in a rush for time, or when you need to get a certain location in a day or two and you have these long travel times that you're not going to be able to do these things. However, if the situation fits, or if you feel that, oh, this place looks a little bit sketchy, maybe it's time to bring out those exploration activity cards or bring up that little module in Foundry and make sure everybody's aware of what everybody else is doing. It's that way you can define it and gain the benefits from these exploration activities and use them throughout your campaigns. I do hope you like this video, and if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.